Hi, hello. Good morning. Good afternoon. No, no. My name is Diogo Pacheco, and today I'll be talking about our recent paper, Uncovering Coordinated Network on Social Media. And the idea here is not to go into the finer details, but just to give you a sample of what we've been doing, what we are capable of doing, and hopefully motivate you to go into the paper and see more details and cite us. Okay, so let's move on. I wish I'll be here today talking about memes and how memes spreads on the internet, but the reality is a little bit sad. The reality, we've even though we are living in the era of knowledge, we see that our knowledge are not that trustable anymore. We see the amount of fake news spreads and hoaxy, and nobody believes in anything anymore. So you don't believe in vaccines. You don't think that your voting process is reliable anymore. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Things are derailing somehow, and then we also know many of us, and you including, have been studying about bots and the capacity of bots of promoting or amplify this narrative, right? But today I want to go a little bit beyond bots. Like we've been witnessing large coordinated campaigns that are not only involving individuals anymore, but we see like states taking part of this on this war or this challenge online. And the idea is maybe okay, it's good. We have several tools that help us identify bots, but there are something beyond, and it's hard to uncover or unveil who is behind the bots, right? So if we think a little bit further beyond the bots and try to detect coordination, a group of accounts, people, a group of entities, let's say like this, who was acting upon some issue. So if you try to detect these groups, maybe we are closer to try to debunk this type of behavior online. But what is coordinated, right? So as we can assume that authentic users are somewhat independent of each other, and we consider surprising lack of independence as an evidence of coordination. So we have like a bunch of accounts interacting online, and we see, oh, what's the normal type of connection. This is the normal. So what is not normal is abnormal, and therefore is suspicious, is coordinated, deserve us to look more carefully to see what's going on. So we came up with this framework, and the general idea of this framework, the conceptual idea is like this. So you start tracking something online, some behavior that is observable, and then we map the accounts or the users who are perform those behaviors, and eventually we see that there are many users are similar somehow, so we can measure similarity among those users, and given those similarities they have some sort of connections or strength of connection, and we create this network of accounts. Finally, we can break this network of accounts in smaller groups, and this will give us the what we are looking for, the coordinated groups. So that's the conceptual idea. But behind that, we have several questions that we are practicing answering in order to build this pipeline. So first, you need to start with a conjecture. So what is suspicious? What are you looking for? You cannot find like what is going on out of a blank. Just press a button and get the suspicious group. First, you need to start looking for something. So what is, maybe it's too weird to see everybody sharing the same image at the same time. I don't know. You have to be creative in this step, and eventually these are two things very connected. So you have a suspicion of something, but it's something that is traceable. So you have a piece of information, a piece of behavior that you want to trace. And this is one of the most important part of the entire framework, because based on the trace, you define if your coordination will be based on content, if people are trying to share the same content, try to amplify the same content, or if they're trying to mimic others. So the trace is somewhat related to identity or related to some spatial temporal patterns, or you can have a combination of this. And of course you can go move on. So given that you know the problem that you're looking for, you know the type of information you're looking for on tweets, for instance, or any type of social media. Now you look at your data. So do I need to filter my data in order to be reliable? What if this piece of information that I'm trying to track? And we move on with other questions that I won't enter details here. So let's move to the case studies. I think that's the best way how to show what we did. And the first one, instead of showing the suspicious, I'll go opposite. So have you heard about name squatting? So this is a weird thing that happens in a few social media, so Twitter, Facebook and others. It's when someone can steal your name. Imagine you have your handle is kind of your brand there, but eventually someone might take it and then exploit you somehow in order to give you back your handle. So this is something that happens. There is a black market just for this type of things. Let's give another example. Imagine that you see this profile there. So anti-GOP movement, a global anti-GOP movement, has a Twitter page, Facebook page, Instagram, and everywhere. And it's suspicious, but it's not perceived. It's okay. There are movements for anything, right? And it's there. It's a fundraising campaign trying to get people to engage with them, to give money. But eventually you find another profile that's very, 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 very similar. Should not say it's equal, besides the name. So one is anti-GOP and the other one is pro-GOP. Wow, this is really weird. Word by word, the same thing. Eventually someone realized that these are the same person that they're trying to run these different campaigns. And in these two examples, this is something that we found in our coordination framework. So we are not, the conjecture here was not, oh, let me try to find name squat, or let's try to find people who are changed the name. No, the idea here is identity. The conjecture, the basic conjecture is identity should not be shared. So let's see what, if there is people that are sharing their identities, multiples over and over, and see what's going on. So here the conjecture was this. The trace was the screen name, so we start connect accounts with the screen name, and eventually we end up with this beautiful network where each component has its own story. So for instance, these big stars over here, they represent the name squatting campaign or issues. The big nodes here, the one perpetrating the malicious activity, and the smaller ones are the victims. But usually what you see are just like these groups of accounts. So the example that I showed you before. So there were 6 accounts sharing 7 handles. So eventually you were pro-Trump, eventually you become anti-Trump, and this was a very weird thing going on. And by the way, that was like the trace that we are trying to investigate was identity trace. So the coordination-based identity. In this other example, we are trying to see, okay, let's check about content. And in this example, you are tracking image, not the raw image, and we are not checking, for instance, retweets of image. This is basic, right? But imagine that you receive an image, you download, and then you upload. How many times different people upload the same image? And this is something that we find that's unlikely to happen. And eventually, we engineer a little bit this image. Instead of having the raw image, we convert in RGB interval, so we can have a slightly variations of crops and tonalities, and we still can classify 2 images as the same one. And here is a different data set, so we were able to get these groups pro and anti Hong Kong, just to give more examples. And in another data set, there is a pump and dump scheme, so they try to use social media to inflate or to bring attention to some cryptocurrency, trying to make some buzz, and eventually they coordinate the attack and say, okay, let's sell now and drop the price and make profit. So in this case, we are trying, the trace was just the timestamps. When 2 accounts were working exactly the same account over and over and over again. And again, we were able to identify those groups trying to promote these schemas. Another example here, we start with content, like hashtag sequence. Imagine that you tweet 10 times a day. I don't care about the text itself, but just see the hashtags that you use. And you start concatenate tweet by tweet. I extract these hashtags, and in the end I have a sequence, right? So how likely are the 2 accounts have the same sequence of hashtag in a day? Well, maybe not very likely. And imagine that this can be, it's possible. So let's combine the content with the time pattern. So I have now the sequence, and I multiply this day by day, and I have like the repetition of this. And we are able to find groups of accounts that are sharing dozens and dozens of the same hashtags over and over, of course, trying to promote some campaigns, right? Again, another example. Now we're using based on Co-Retweet. I won't give details here because I'm almost running out of time. But what is interesting here is, in all this case, what we found that the coordination goes way beyond bots. So we split in suspicious groups and not suspicious groups, right? When you look just in the suspicious groups, we can see that the bot scores of these accounts, they spread all the range of being bought or not being bought. That means what? In the surrounded in the coordination actors, they are normal or human-like accounts. So this is the great advantage that we are promoting here. You are able to detect these bad actors beyond their botness. And that's it. So the code is all available, and I hope you can go there, download, and try yourself, try to get some coordinated bad actors there. Hopefully we can make the internet a little bit more trustworthy. Thank you. Bye bye. And Bao will be here to answer your questions. Thank you.